Jedi Survivor gameplay should be releasing in just a few hours from now, and you may be watching this video after the gameplay has released, but in this video I'll be going over 5 things that I want to see in this new gameplay, and you'll be able to see how wrong or right I am, especially if you're watching this after. Now we don't know whether it's just a trailer or a more in-depth gameplay showcase like EA Play's Fallen Order showcase back in 2019, but given it's at the Game Awards I imagine it'll be the typical 2.5 minute trailer. Or potentially it could be a 4 to 5 minute gameplay preview. Regardless, I'd like to see a number of things. Before I go into that though, let me know your top 5 things in the comments and we can see how similar our lists are, or if the gameplay is out, then let me know how close you were. So the first thing I want to see is blaster gameplay. Blasters will be in the game I'm sure, and we've already seen from the Cal Kestis Black Series figure that he does have a blaster, which means that we will very likely be able to use it. I'd love to see that in the gameplay trailer though, because I quite frankly would love to have some confirmation on it, but I think it would also just appeal to a lot of people. Having blaster gameplay adds a totally new and unique experience to Survivor as opposed to Fallen Order, and it's something I've wanted for years. Obviously the game is about a Jedi who survived Order 66, so lightsabers will be a big part of the game just like they were in Fallen Order, the first game in the series. In Fallen Order we got to use a single blade and a dual bladed lightsaber, so the next thing I'd love to see in Jedi Survivor and ideally in this gameplay is more lightsaber options, such as dual wield, crossguard or a saber pike. Each saber type would likely have a different way to play the game, so some extra variety on top of what we got in Fallen Order I think would go a long way, especially when it comes to replayability. For example, let's say you've completed the game already and you want to go back and replay the story. If you have to start the game with a single blade only, but then shortly into the game you get a saber pike, then perhaps you can decide to just use the saber pike for the rest of the game. Now lightsabers are of course a huge thing in Star Wars, and I know so many people love using the lightsabers in these games, but I think it would actually be really interesting to have the ability to use melee weapons that aren't actually lightsabers. In the trailer we see Cal's lightsaber in a box that's given to the Powan Senator, so at this stage in the game he would likely have to use his blaster only, or perhaps he could use other melee weapons. Just like having different types of lightsabers, having different melee weapons would add a lot of variety to the gameplay, which is good for replayability, something that I felt was lacking in Fallen Order. The fourth thing that I'd like to see in Jedi Survivor is companions, though I do find this most unlikely out of the 5. In Fallen Order we were introduced to Grease, Seer, and a later addition to the crew was Night Sister Merrin. Grease I don't think would really want to leave the ship too often, but I honestly think it would be great if at particular parts of the game we can explore and play through the story with Seer or Merrin fighting by our sides, assuming of course they are still around given this is 5 years later. At times obviously I'd love to venture out on my own with BD1 on my shoulder like the good old days of Fallen Order, but I'm going to say it again, adding companions would add a new thing to the Jedi series and would really improve following on from Jedi Fallen Order. The fifth and final thing that I would love to see in the Jedi Survivor gameplay is a hint of non-linear open world exploration. My biggest gripe with Fallen Order was that the maps are very linear, and whilst you can explore a variety of places, it's still very restricted, and there wasn't an awful lot for you to do after you found the cosmetics. In Jedi Survivor I'd love to have more lore to interact with, more cosmetics to find, lots more Easter eggs around the maps, but more importantly just non-linear exploration I think would work better for side quests, but that's a whole different matter. That sense of freedom in a game is something that I think a lot of people really enjoy, so having that in a new Star Wars game could be really fun. So to summarise, the 5 things that I want to see in this Jedi Survivor gameplay trailer, or if not then in the full game, is blaster gameplay, more lightsaber types, different melee weapons that aren't lightsabers, companions, and better open world exploration. Now if you didn't know, I've been writing some articles for Nerdgasm as part of Star Wars Now, so if you want to see me write content then make sure to head over there, and I've left a link to my latest article which is very similar to this video for you to check out if you wish. Anyway guys, that is all I have for you today. I'll do my best to get a Jedi Survivor gameplay video out for you ASAP, but unfortunately it may not happen until Monday as I do have a very busy weekend away, but I will have to let you know. Thank you all very much for watching though guys, and may the Force be with you always.